Portugal braces for a possible third election in 3 years after the government called for a confidence vote.
Călin Georgescu supporters clashed with police after Romania's electoral committee barred the far-right candidate from running in Sunday's presidential election. Former central banker Mark Carney is set to become Canada's new Prime Minister as he wins Liberal Party leadership race, succeeding Justin Trudeau.
A new political crisis in Portugal could push the country towards its third general election in 3 years as early as May. With 2 motions of confidence rejected in less than 2 weeks, Prime Minister Luís Montenegro's own proposal for a confidence vote is likely to be rejected as well. If lawmakers reject Montenegro's motion, the government would fall pending a decision by the president on whether to call fresh elections. The discovery that Montenegro's family received €4,500 from a group of casinos, for which the government will decide on concession contracts this year, initially triggered the crisis. The anonymous complaint sparked questions about potential conflicts of interest in the Prime Minister's private business dealings. Montenegro has denied any wrongdoing and called an early election a necessary evil.
Isto nunca tinha acontecido em Portugal. Haver uma moção de confiança que, pelos vistos, vai ser reprovada, mas que não tem a ver com a desconfiança na ação política do governo que se está a governar mal, mas tem a ver com as próprias condições de integridade, se tem ou não tem, do próprio Primeiro-Ministro, que é o líder desse mesmo governo.
O Presidente da República já admitiu que, no caso de o governo cair, a primeira data possível para o país ir às urnas é 11 e 18 de maio. Nas ruas de Lisboa, os portugueses parecem não querer ir a eleições e pedem mais transparência ao Primeiro-Ministro.
Não vejo uma grande saída para o país, não me parece que as eleições vão resolver absolutamente nada, manterá mais ou menos o mesmo modelo de distribuição de deputados, mais para cá ou mais para lá, e vamos entrar num outro impasse.
Dada a situação, é melhor esclarecer com eleições do que estarmos aqui a empatar e não saímos do mesmo lugar.
Acho que há pouca transparência e acho que eles deviam mesmo era desistir do governo, não é? Mas as eleições é uma chatice. Eu acho que vai ser uma despesa muito grande para o país e quem paga isso tudo somos nós mesmos.
O debate e votação da moção de confiança deverá acontecer esta terça-feira, dia 11 de março, 1 ano e 1 dia depois das legislativas de 2024. Os deputados serão chamados a votar e a expressar se confiam ou não neste Executivo. Caso haja uma maioria no sentido da rejeição, isso ditará a queda do governo. Joana Mourão Carvalho, para a Euronews, em Lisboa.
Syria's new government announced the end of a days-long military operation against fighters loyal to overthrown President Bashar al-Assad on Monday. On Sunday, Syrian activists had gathered in Damascus to call for peace and an end to the killing of civilians. But War Monitor, the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, reported violent clashes with gunmen associated to the Ministry of Defense. The initial surge of violence came after a surprise attack by gunmen from the Alawite community on the police patrol, kicking off widespread fighting across Syria's coastal region on Thursday. According to War Monitors, at least 1,130 people have been killed in the clashes, including 830 civilians. On Monday, the European Union condemned these attacks, demanding for the perpetrators to be brought to justice. While on Sunday, the US called for the perpetrators of these massacres to be held accountable.
Russia announced on Monday that it was expelling 2 British diplomats stationed at the embassy in Moscow, accusing them of espionage. The Federal Security Service, FSB, claimed in a statement that the diplomats had submitted false personal details when applying for entry into Russia and were involved in alleged intelligence and subversive activities that posed a threat to national security. However, no evidence was provided to support these claims. Since Russia's full-scale invasion of of Ukraine in 2022, diplomatic expulsions between Moscow and Western nations have become increasingly frequent. Last month, London expelled a Russian diplomat in retaliation for an expulsion in November.
Romania's Central Electoral Committee has suspended the application by ultranationalist presidential candidate Călin Georgescu to run in the upcoming elections on Sunday. The suspension sparked condemnation and triggered protests in the capital, Bucharest. Georgescu supporters clashed with police in front of the committee's headquarters. One gendarme was injured in the scuffles. The committee examined documents filed by Georgescu but did not approve one related to his campaign funding, noting that it was missing a required signature. The far-right candidate slammed the decision, calling it a direct blow to the heart of democracy before labeling Europe as a dictatorship. One of his advisors announced on Monday that he will challenge the election authority. The Constitutional Court should rule on Georgescu's appeal by Wednesday. The committee defended its decision in a 3-page document and accused Georgescu of not displaying values the presidential office requires. Georgescu, dubbed the TikTok Messiah, came out on top in the first round of Romania's presidential elections in December. The Constitutional Court annulled the vote following the declassification of intelligence reports showing Russian meddling in influencing voters. A one-day strike by workers at 13 German airports caused the cancellation of most flights on Monday. Public sector employees at the airports, as well as ground and security staff, organized a 24-hour walkout as part of an ongoing dispute over wages and working conditions. The German Airports Association said more than 3,400 flights were expected to be cancelled throughout the country. The Frankfurt and Berlin airports said all departures and arrivals on Monday are affected by the strike.
Wütend, ich verstehe schon, wenn der Streik, also was die wollen und für was sie sich einsetzen. Aber es ist schon, wenn man auf den Flug angewiesen ist, so weit, ja, und man muss alles in die Wege leiten, das ist schon schwierig.
The Service Workers Union announced the strike on Friday, but added a short-notice walkout on Sunday at Hamburg Airport, arguing that it must ensure the measure was effective. A common tactic in German wage negotiations, the so-called warning strike related to 2 separate pay disputes. Negotiations on a new pay and conditions contract for airport security workers and a wider dispute over pay for employees of federal and municipal governments.
Former central banker Mark Carney will become Canada's next prime minister after the ruling Liberal Party elected him as their new leader. And in his first speech, he was quick to take a defiant stance against threats from U.S. President Donald Trump.
There's someone who's trying to weaken our economy. Donald Trump, as we know, has put, as the Prime Minister just said, unjustified tariffs on what we build, on what we sell, on how we make a living. He's attacking Canadian families, workers and businesses, and we cannot let him succeed.
Immediately addressing one of Canadians' most pressing concerns, Carney said his government will continue fighting Trump.
The Canadian government has rightly retaliated and is rightly retaliating with our own tariffs that will have maximum impact in the United States and minimum impact here in Canada. And my government will keep our tariffs on until the Americans show us respect.
In first place, the next Prime Minister of Canada, Mark Carney.
Carney was the former governor of Canada's central bank and is widely credited with helping orchestrate the country's fast recovery from the 2008 financial crisis. In 2013, he was appointed as governor of the Bank of England, becoming the first non-citizen to do so since its founding. More recently, he served as the United Nations Special Envoy for Climate Change and Finance. Carney will succeed Justin Trudeau as Prime Minister in the coming days after he's sworn in. The Harvard-educated economist with Wall Street experience may not keep the job for long. He's expected to trigger a snap election shortly. Opposition parties could also force one with a no-confidence vote later this month.
Faced with the US withdrawal, the EU 27 are taking their security back into their own hands. The member states have approved a plan to rearm Europe with a budget of 800 billion euros. However, on the left, some contentious voices are raised against European rearmament.
Europe's rearmament is the next great folly of the European Union. It's going to make us less safe. It will make life nastier, more brutish, shorter in Europe. It will certainly dissolve what social fabric we have left after 20, 30 years of crisis. It is a way to weaken Europe in the name of making it stronger.
The European Commission has proposed that member countries deviate from the EU's rules of budgetary orthodoxy to finance their defense spending. For his part, the future German Chancellor Friedrich Merz has opened the door to an end to the debt brake to enable Germany to finance its own rearmament. This represents a 180-degree turnaround for this prudent state, which was notably in favor of restructuring Greek debt during the 2009 crisis. The former Greek finance minister welcomes this paradigm shift with some reservations.
Of course, I welcome the end of this debt brake, but there is no silver lining here because Mr. Merz, the way he's announcing it, it is clear that what he wants to do is he wants to indulge in military Keynesianism. Instead of investing in life, he's investing mostly in death. And that, even if you look at it from a realistic macroeconomic point of view, it's not going to generate the growth where it is necessary.
Asked whether pacifism might be similar to giving Vladimir Putin a blank check to invade neighboring countries, he replies that pacifism is never a good response to invasion, but that opting for endless war isn't rational either.